Welcome to the first in a few videos on the dominant seventh chord, Chapter 8 in the Roig-Francoli textbook. There'll be 4 videos, this one about it in root position. The second video will be specifically part writing them in root position. The third video will talk about inversions and writing them, and then a practice analysis using an example from your textbook. So we're on page 227. And I'll make reference to musical examples again. So you've already analyzed 5-7 before. We saw it in our Silent Night analysis. It works just like the triad 5. So it still has a dominant function and goes to 1 usually. But we're going to focus on writing it in this chapter. So the 7th of the chord, this new chordal 7th, we add to our major triad, creates more tension for 5 needing resolution when it moves to 1. So remember that 5 already had a tendency tone in it, that we have Sol, Ti, Re, if we're in a key. So we have Ti is the 3rd of the chord, and that usually resolves up to Do, right? As you remember. So adding a 7th to this chord, sounds like this, adds another tendency tone, Fa, which needs to resolve down to Mi. And this resolution of the 7th of the chord, moving down by step, is something that happens in all 7th chords in this style. Not just 5-7, but 1-7 and 4-7. So you'll want to remember this rule, because we're going to need it in the future in other chapters, so that the 7th of the chord resolves down by step. Memorize that sentence. So it talks about how we part write root position 5-7 to 1. And there are 3 options we have: alternating complete and incomplete, and then having both of them be complete. So if we're going to omit a pitch to have an incomplete chord, we're going to omit the 5th and keep the root in the 3rd. And if we omit something, that means we have to double something else. So we're going to double the root. And keep in mind, you're going to be asked on the test to be able to write all 3 of these different versions of root position 5-7, moving to root position 1. So make sure you know all of these things and can recreate them when asked. So our first example is complete going to incomplete. So the 5-7 will have all 4 notes in it, Sol, Ti, Re, Fa, and the 1 chord will be missing the 5th, Sol, and have a tripled root, Do, and 1/3, Mi. So let's follow each individual voice. So the bass will sing Sol, Do, Sol, Do. One of the upper voices will sing Ti to Do, Ti, Do, and then we'll get the 7th of the chord, Fa, Mi, in another voice, Fa, Mi, and then the last voice will sing Re to Do, Re, Do. It's also possible to double the 3rd by having Re go up to Mi instead, but I'm going to focus on the tripled root version. So here's what this one would sound like. So notice in this final chord here, there's no 5th. All right, we can do the reverse and have an incomplete 5-7 chord going to complete 1. So the solfege here, we're leaving out the 5th of our 5-7 chord, the Re, and replacing it with another Sol. So there are 2 sols, the root of the chord. So let's follow the voice leading here. We still have Sol, Do in the bass. We still have a voice going Ti, Do. And we still have a voice going Fa, Mi. But now we're taking advantage of the common tone between the 2 chords and having that happen in the other voice. So this gives us something that sounds like this. So notice I only have, there's no 5th in the first chord, and this one is complete. We do have our 5th here. So there's that one. And the last example, so to have both of them be complete, we have to do something different to T. T can't go up to Do. It'll go down to Sol, and this is called frustrating the leading tone. So instead of, we get. Now that would sound very awkward in an outside voice, the soprano or the bass. So we have to sort of cover it up by putting it in the alto or the tenor. So make sure that this frustrated leading tone is not in the soprano when you part write it. So here we go. Take a look. We got Sol, Do, Fa and Mi, and that T, Sol, but we do keep our Re to Do. So that sounds like this. So you'll see more examples visually in a moment. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to talk about in this video is on page 231, preparing the seventh. So you're going to want to know about this, but I'm not going to specifically emphasize that you make sure you do this and take off points and all those things. But know that this is true. So this chordal seventh is still being treated like a dissonance, like a non-chord tone, although it happens for the whole length of the chord. Meaning it is resolved like a non-chord tone, right? Resolving down by step is something a bunch of our non-chord tones do, as I have listed here. But so composers also prepare them like dissonances. So there's actually an order of preference that composers choose. So it's more likely to see them prepared by a common tone, so the same note in the previous chord, giving us a suspension-like figure. But it's also fine to do by step, so it'll look like a passing tone or a neighboring tone with the middle note being the seventh of the chord. And it's also possible to do a leap up into the seventh and resolve down by step, like an appoggiatura. Now, if it's preceded by a downward leap, it's not prepared, and that would be very awkward in this style. Something the composers would try to avoid. So, think about preparing the seventh. You can now move on to the second video showing you how to write all of these incomplete and complete root position 5/7 and 1 chords.